Mark is I think so in the group, I know everyone talks about what do you guys get on average for tip? Anyone that's watching this, what do you guys get on tips or what's your policy with tips? Like I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, but Mark is pretty good at getting tips. So he is a tip machine. So what do you guys think a good tip is? What is there anyone in any of the groups what is an average tip that you see your guys get? So, Mark, just take a guess what you think most companies are used to seeing for a tip for a Christmas light job.
Per job,
Yeah.
probably 20 to 40 for other people.
Yeah.
I would
Um,
average.
Okay, so probably 20 to 40 is what you would think. So Mark also does power washing for me. So I only power wash part time, but it's I would say it's almost more often than not that he gets a tip. So that's just we call him a walking tip jar. So is there anyone that can guess about approximately what an average tip for Mark is or the crew when he's on the crew? Like when I'm on the crew, I don't get a ton of tips. But when I'm not on the truck, I'm not on the job. Mark gets tips. So this live stream we're talking about the customer experience. So yeah. So just there's no one commenting. Okay. All right. So no one has a guess like what kind of tip. I mean, if you're the owner operator, no one that's watching this has any time that they get a tip. Like what's your average tip when you're on the job as the owner? When you're the owner, do you get any tips at all? Like I do get tips, but I will say when I'm not on the job, Mark cleans house. Just someone guess like what is probably what would you think a large tip is? I'll tell you what he got last year just on a single job. Actually, there's two jobs that just kind of absolutely crazy. So one of them was an NBA player. What was the name? I forget.
TJ McConnell.
TJ McConnell. So anyone that he's like a point guard for the Indiana Pacers. And we've been doing the house for like 6 years. I didn't even know the guy was on the Pacers. And Mark's like, do you know whose house this is that we've been doing? I was like, I don't know. It's pretty, we really light it up. And he's like, I'm pretty sure this is an NBA player. So he looked it up. We've been doing the house for 5 years. And he was sure. He's like, I think this is McConnell, the NBA player. It turns out it was. Guess what kind of tip that Mark got? Any questions? 50. No, Caitlin says $50. Does anyone think is it up or down? Mark, is it do show direction with your thumb? Is it up or down? Mark.
Mine.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it it's a little bit up. Yeah. I could be wrong. Is there any other guesses out there? $50. No, I think that's a little low. This NBA player tipped him $700. Is that right, Mark?
yes.
$700 on top of it's a pretty good paying job. We do the ridges. I don't know if $51. No, it's still no. Mark got a $700 tip, but that's the level of customer service that your guys out in the field need to have. If you guys are planning on do, my wife says do a dab, but I'm not. So my policy is I don't keep the tips. So I give the tips to the guys that were on the truck.
So that's for 1 hour of work, also. Just
That's for one hour of work.
to clarify that, yeah, that's a pretty good tip for an hour job.
So the job took you an hour. Okay, that job is a crazy house. So that's the other thing. A lot of guys that are owner operators here, there is no way it would take you all day to do this job. Mark can do it in about an hour. So the thing is, experience, like with experience, like you don't have to think about things. You just kind of know how everything goes. And when you've done a job for multiple years, so like this job, I mean, it's almost like a $2,500 job. But yeah, he installed it in an hour. So I don't know you guys that are watching this, but that's like, you're not going to do that year one. You're not going to do that probably year two. But Mark has been, so I know you guys don't think install is important, like, but Mark is a attention to detail. We rarely get calls back. He will pick out problems on the job before he gets back in the truck. So we rarely have callbacks. So not having callbacks. So I run really lean and mean. I really only have one crew. We did about 300 installs last year. So like 4 years ago, I did 340 installs. That was as big as my company ever was. But we've kind of scaled back. And let okay. So, but the last it was too stressful for me. But I what I've done is I put well, Paul Gardner's the one that really taught me that to do this. But he said you just got to find the right guy and you got to kind of let him have the reins. So that right guy for my company has been Mark. So Mark, uh, explain like to anyone that's got a business that they're trying to grow and they're kind of stuck, like how much freeing that was when, like, especially this last year, I kind of just turned the reins over to you.
It was a relief. Again, because we did have, between you trying to micromanage it, and then there was someone else that was working that was kind of the foreman just trying to micromanage. It was just a little difficult because I've been doing it for a while, and the foreman was too, and I know everyone likes to do it their own way, but I deal with clients every day. Like, I talk to the clients, I get to know them, so I know exactly what they want. So it was kind of a relief when you kind of just handed it over and just let us do what we do, because again, you pay us well, you've paid me well always, so I know what's best for that company. I know how to keep it growing and just have a happy client, honestly. So it was a relief. I didn't think of it as, oh, I'm taking a lot more on, this is harder. It was actually easier, because when you work with people for so long, you're around them every day, so you know how everyone works, you know how much you can get done every day. So it's a lot easier to manage it yourself instead of being almost micromanaged again. And I know a lot of there might not be a lot of lead techs that can do that, but after a while you kind of figure it out, and it's a lot easier when you don't have anyone micromanaging.
So Mark has been with me. I think this is going to be his sixth season going in installing lights. But the thing is, I'm spread pretty thin because I got a lot of things going on. So I mean, this year at first it was a little bit nerve wracking, but I kind of just turned everything over to him. I said, "You just figure it out." And uh, I mean, the thing is, it got rid of a lot of stress for me. He actually knows the guys better than I do, so he knows their ability, and he knows he can look at the schedule for the next day. And I put him in touch with my office staff, and they would communicate. And actually, we're getting our systems better. So this next year, I think the best system was the day before he'd go over the next day's schedule with the office staff before the early morning, because some of my office staff is not the best in the morning. So we found by getting it all arranged the day before makes it so you have extremely productive the following day. And that, I mean, like, I'm a growing business too. So do I have Riz Pizza? What is Riz Bubba? You have Riz Bubba. Do you know what that means?
Jared actually always says the word Riz. Yeah.
Yeah, we're you guys are a little young for us, but he's not a Generation Z. He's actually you're a millennial, right? That's a cat.
I think so. Yeah, I mean 1995, whatever that is.
Okay, so who thinks $700 was the biggest tip that Mark got this year? We call him a walking tip jar. Any guesses? Who thinks that's the biggest tip he got this year? So this is what I'm trying to explain is this is a level of you need an employee like this. And like Paul Gardner told me, you're not going to get this. You're not going to get great employees if you're holding them back. Like, you got to give them the reins, and you also got to treat them. You got to take care of them. I'm not going to pay Mark $20 an hour and have him do the kind of work. So this year, he wants to start his own company. So I don't want to squash it. I mean, I teach people how to start their companies all the time, but I'm trying to make sure that he can make as much money working for me that if he goes starts his own company. Because the thing is, he could start his own company. He could be very well. If customers love him. So if you're going to send guys out on a job, you need to make sure that the customers love them. Like, I've had a lot of employees. I've never seen anyone get as many tips for my own company, but I've asked around. I don't know any other company that's got a guy that gets as many tips as Mark. We had one customer that actually you could the story was, so I gave the guys $600 because that's what the customer had cash. And so I gave them $600. They all split it for this job and they're all happy. And then I told Mark a couple days later, well, the customer said, do you think they're going to be happy with this? I was like, oh, absolutely. And he's like, well, the thing is, I'm trying to tip you $1,600, but Jobber would not let $1,600 tip go through because it was such a high percentage on the job. So he's like, all I got is $600 cash. Could you just give this to the guys? I don't want them to be upset with me. I was like, no, they'll be happy with this. I just won't tell them that you were trying to give them 1,600. So, but yeah, they're literally, a guy was trying to give Mark a $1,600 tip this year. And that was only probably a $2,500 job. It's just Mark goes above and beyond. So let's see. I think we got some people tagging other people to come onto the, so
there is one thing, right? I am a lead technician, that's great, but underneath you, you also have to have people underneath you that actually listen to you, and they want to actually learn what is going on. Like last year was a completely different crew besides me. I was working with two other Spanish guys, and they were able to understand what needed to be done, and they were able to listen to me instead of actually arguing and saying, oh, I don't want to do that, or they're too tired, because we do work a lot of hours. But again, I get along with them. They were able to listen to me, and obviously I get paid the highest, so I do give incentives. Every now and then I'll stop, I'll buy them Starbucks. I treat them well, and they treat me well, which we're able to treat you well as well. So it's not just finding a good lead tech, it's also finding good people underneath that lead tech, so that way the workers can actually listen to the person. And say if one day your lead tech is not there, well, the people underneath, someone else needs to step up because they know how your systems work for a while. So it's all of it important, but it comes down to your lead tech. Who is in charge?
well, the thing is, Mark's more than a tech. So like he actually was, not only was he doing his own jobs, but he had access to everyone that was on Jobber. So when they were on the job, they could call with the problem and he could walk it through even without being on the job. He actually this year, because he actually lives in another state, so he would fly in and then he'd fly back out. He was actually not on the job site pretty often this last year, a lot more than any other year. He was working remotely from another state, which is, I mean, the thing is, the guys that he actually kind of helped hire some of the guys that he brought on, but they listened to him. So they actually respect him probably much more than me because that's their boss.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, because this year he's like, hey, I want to bring in some of my own guys to help. Is that all right? I was like, go ahead, just whatever you need. So
And
the thing is, I'm trying to support Mark to help him. He understands the jobs better than I do. I mean, I know how to install them, but he has great customer support. So I know, I know a lot of guys that are watching this don't feel comfortable having some of their installers talk to the homeowner. But you're gonna, at some point, if you don't want to be on every job, you're gonna have to turn the reins over to someone. So you're gonna have to develop trust with them. And you're also like, the thing is, I can't be making a pile of money on top of Mark, or he's probably going to want to go work somewhere else. So I mean, I understand there's people watching this that think that I overpay my guys, and you can go ahead and think that, but I worked less hours in my install business this last year than I ever have. Now I'm working more hours in like my light show, which that's a whole nother story. But Mark took a lot of responsibility, and that helped my business run a lot more smoothly.
yeah,
So
it definitely helped everyone. It was less stressful for me, I would say. It was probably less stressful for you. And on top of that, the two guys that I did bring in were actually really good, because last year I think we had quite a bit of roofers, and we only did about 80 houses more. So say if you were to double hour three and we had six of the same working quality guys, we could have done, 600. So it was nice that I was able to find the right guys. Again, it was a lot less stressful for everyone and a
Well,
lot more.
having the right, so remember, so a lot of guys that are just jumping in. So I actually run a seasonal business. I am a standalone. I don't have another business outside of Christmas lights. I just do Christmas lights because my Christmas light business is in a separate state than I live in. So I move back there every year and install my lights. Well, so I run against a lot of different obstacles that most of you guys watching this don't have to go from. But Mark started with brand new crews last year. He had to train pretty much everyone. Like, no, he was coming with no okay, what is this question here? What does communication with customer look like on a typical job for Mark? Okay, well, just the backdrop. Mark had to bring in a bunch of guys and train them from scratch how to install lights this year. And I had less stress than I've ever had installing lights. My business ran almost flawlessly this year. And it's because I turned the reins over to Mark and he trained these guys year one experience, and they were top notch by the end of the year. So it can be done. You can bring on a bunch of new guys and train them up, but you need one guy who really knows what's going on. In fact, Mark, if you guys want to see him, he is going to be at the Connecticut training that we're having in like 3 weeks. He's going to be actually the one doing the hands-on training. So if you got your crew chiefs, you got your crew, and you want them to see how, the thing about Mark is he's probably the best installer in the United States. And I would put him up against any installer in the US. He's probably the fastest. And also it's not just about being fast, but he can lay out the job when he gets there right off the truck. And they could be in and out sometimes in 40 minutes and just gone. And like sometimes complex jobs. And if you don't have a good systems in place, that's not going to happen. You're not going to do 300 installs with one crew if you guys don't have like an A team. So that's Mark is okay. So what does communication customers look like on a typical job? So this is a question for Mark.
Um, so if the client, usually the clients aren't home, but if they are home, I will absolutely talk to them. They will either come out, but when we first get there, I kind of feel out, the area, if I should knock on the door and just let them know if we're home. Sometimes I already know that they're not home, so I don't bother knocking. But I always like to notify people that I do show up. Um, I don't want to just be randomly, putting lights on there because the schedule can get a little messed up. Some people expect us there at, 11 a.m. and we might actually get there at 9 a.m. a little bit earlier. Regardless, they usually don't get mad. So I communicate with them. I basically tell them everything that's going on, what they paid for, and while I'm talking to them, the other people are actually working. So no one is ever sitting around. So I'm building a client relationship while the other two guys are actually starting the work. Um, it was funny because one year, last year there was a lady that answered her phone, and I was communicating with her a lot. And you actually didn't want me on that job at that time because other stuff had to be done, but I knew it was an important repair and I was right down the road. So I called the lady, we talked, whatever, and then I called her again just to basically let her know that we're here instead of knocking on the door, because I knew she had dogs that would just freak out. So I called her and she was swearing up a storm and like just talking bad about me, which I get it. You're frustrated, whatever. So I, I take that as a challenge almost. Like those are the people that I'm not going to get mad at that. I'm going to take care of whatever you need to get done, right? So, say a different company might get mad and walk off the job, or they don't want to do the job, or whatever the case may be. But not for nothing, I rather have a good review or no review annoying the person instead of not calling that person and going out of my way to get you a bad review. So, that's the kind of customer relationship I guess you would say that I have. I have someone swearing at me. I don't care. I still go handle it because I want a good review for the company. So I don't care how many times I annoy you, but I'm trying to fix your job. I'm trying to repair your job. So you can be mad all you want, but you can't say that the work wasn't done and that we didn't reach out. So
Yeah, so Mark is awesome at de-escalating situations. Actually, he's probably a lot better at de-escalating a situation with a homeowner than I am, and I'm pretty good at bringing the homeowner and like we'll roll out the red carpet for them. I mean, they pay good money, so we want to make sure. Like one thing we do with our company at Christmas Light Installers is when we bid a job, if we underbid it, like I tell my techs that I don't care. Whatever it's going to take to make the job look right, it's our fault if we underbid it. We will eat it. Like I know some people are like, well, they're going to call them and try to up the price. I can't say we've never done that, but it's extremely rare that we're ever going to ask for more money than we originally put out on the original estimate because that's our fault. So, but so we will make the job look top notch, but sometimes we end up underbidding them. And then the customer, you know that you underbid it, then the customer still wants more and more and more. So I will pretty much do whatever it takes to make the customer happy on the first time. I'll just put a note in the file that we're not working for this customer again, or that next year, or that the job price needs to go up dramatically. So
yeah, things.
but Mark, he will. I'll be like kind of faking a smile and just like, uh-huh. But Mark, he'll actually be chipper and happy to service the customer, even though he's like, I can't believe this. The job's all done. We'll be leaving, and Mark will be like, man, I could not believe they did this. But he's definitely good at keeping customers thinking that everything's going the exact way that we planned, and we're all happy.
Yeah. So if it's like, say for a roof line, right? If it's under 25 feet and they want that done, and I would obviously try calling you first. If you don't answer, I'll make the executive decision and just handle it. But if we're talking more than 50 feet, that's a little bit more, So that is something that if you didn't answer, I probably wouldn't do it on the spot because now that we're talking, 50 feet is quite a bit. But 25 feet really isn't that much. So 25 feet, I would absolutely make an executive decision, take care of it. 50 feet, not so much. And again, I explain all of this to the client, and they're not mad because the key thing is communication. That's all it is. Just explaining everything to the client, like what is going on, what's the issue, why can't you guys do this 50 feet, whatever it is, but the other thing is, the trees is mainly where we have the problems. Trees grow every single year, and you're not going to drive to the job site every every single year to go check out to see how big their trees. So that's really where we have a lot of misunderstandings. But as soon as you tell a client that, they understand trees grow, there's nothing you're going to do about that. Trees grow, bushes grow, and it is what it is.
So actually, we're going to try this out this year, I think, on probably half our jobs. But another one of my competitors is just mopping up with us in Indianapolis. He actually does not bid trees on the phone. He bids the whole job out, and then when he shows up on the job site, he charges them per strand. And he does. He buys more minis than anyone in the country from us. So you could, if you go back, you can see his name's Matt Green. He
Yep.
tells you how he does it. But he says the thing is that's the same thing. He gets so many problems with trying to bid them over the phone from pictures that he never does that till they install. And when they're out there, they give them a ballpark range what it's going to be, but then they let the customer decide while they're on the job. And the only reason I believe him so
That-
much is because he buys more mini lights than anyone in the country from us. So
yeah,
he puts a ton of them up. But he says, yeah, because in the customer, they're like, because when you're out there, how many lights are that once you show up, you're like that. You're gonna need at least 20 strands for this tree. There's no way around it. Like it won't look good if we only do 10 strands on it. So
honestly, I think that's a great idea. Because again, it's the strands. Okay, so yeah, the strands cost money, but the labor is what takes time. So if I just have to put two little strands on a small bush, it is what it is. But two strands on a tree, or wrapping it like that, it takes time. So
this cat is gnawing on me. He's hungry.
what's that?
It's a new kitten. We got a fourth cat now.
Oh, I was gonna say I've never seen that one.
Okay. Now part of the big thing this year is we always have, so I am not the most organized person in the Christmas light world. Anyone that's seen my operation probably can understand, but we've learned how to function in that. And one big thing I learned a few years ago is I bring a trailer everywhere that we go. So a trailer, we have so much excess material that we never run out for the day. But Mark changed it all around this year, and he came up with a better system. So explain what that process, because it allowed him to pretty much do an extra job a day just by what he had done this year without having to carry a trailer with him everywhere. So can you explain like what the game changer was this year?
Absolutely. I mean, I just look at the jobs before the night. And I've been doing it for so long that I know what we need for the next day. And obviously, you always want to take a little bit extra. But say, even if this isn't your fifth year doing it and you don't know exactly how much, right? So, say you have six jobs on your schedule. Um, each house is probably an average of 150 to 200 feet. So, once you know that, you can really figure it out. And then you just add on a little bit extra. You add, so say the houses I have to do this day are about, I got to take 1,000 feet of lights with me. Instead of putting that 1,000 on there, why don't you put 1,500? Because the neighbor next door might just go out there and they want lights on their house, whatever. Um, but yeah, I look at the jobs beforehand. I put everything in the truck. Obviously, if we can't fit it all in the truck, I'll take the van and someone else will take the truck. Um, that's basically it.
So yeah, the big thing was that in the morning at 7 in the morning, he'd be out at the shop for 30 minutes, making sure every single thing on every job was on the truck. And then extra, he always wanted extra because you never know if a neighbor is going to come over and want to install that day. It's much easier to do that neighbor while you're there than to make another trip another day, which
So
I'm sure there's other people listening to this that they'll never make exception for their schedule and they're not going to add it up. But Mark is known for getting stuff done much quicker than what's anticipated. So for him to throw an extra job on for a day doesn't mean they're going to work a whole lot of extra hours.
So this is a key. This is very key with me, right? I think of it as time is literally money with me. I want to be efficient and I want to do things great, but I want to do everything efficient. So the night before, I map out on the Jobber app. You can actually map it out and see, where your jobs land, whatever. So I'll start out farther and work my way down. So if I see that the job is like, I don't know, the first job is about an hour away, I'll leave earlier because I want to be on that job site at the very least 4, 8 a.m., right? Setting up obviously takes a little bit of time, but I need to be on that job site by 8 a.m. I don't want to be there at 8:30. I want to be there at 8 a.m. because not for nothing, those 30 minutes to me are crucial. I count every single minute. And again, I don't care. The guys that work underneath me with me, they're treated well. They understand where I'm at, but they always understood where I was at since day one, which is very important. If they didn't understand what I was trying to do since day one, and I just switched up, a month and a half later, they would be like, "Oh, what's going on? Why are we waking up earlier?" or whatever the case may be. But make sure your guys understand how it is from day one, so they get accustomed to that. But yeah, I want to be on the job at 8 a.m. And obviously, setting up the truck sometimes takes 30 minutes, and it just is what it is. If we have to wake up earlier some days, the guys are all right with it because not for nothing. Everyone's there to make money. I mean, it's 2.5 to 3 months. If you don't want to occupy your time for 2.5 to 3 months making a lot of money, then this probably is not your field. And that's okay.
So I know a lot of the bigger companies than me, they have a third shift person that loads all the trucks for the morning. I personally think that the guy that's going to do the job loading up the truck is probably better than some crew before because there's always going to be something lost in the mix. Do you agree? Like Mark almost never
I
misses what needs on the job.
I mean, I don't want to knock anyone, but I would never waste money or time having a third shift guy doing that because again, if you pay your main guy that well, then when they have the schedule at night, when they're off the clock, they know they have responsibility. So realistically, at 8, 9 o'clock, whatever time right before you go to bed, take a look at your schedule, plan out your next day, um, and you know what you can do in the morning. It's going to take about 20 to 30 minutes, but you're very motivated in the morning, right before work, right? I mean, I am. I don't know if other people are, but you're motivated. You're getting everything ready for the next job. And again, our jobs are about 30 minutes away. So me being responsible, I'm happy. I want to get stuff done today. The other guys, if they want to rest until we get to the first job, that's fine. But again, I get paid well to produce. So I look at the jobs the night before, not getting paid. So instead of paying someone for a third shift job to get everything ready, I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't agree with that.
So that's also another thing, you guys that are hiring people. Mark is actually pretty good at pointing out is like, hey, I would not bring this guy back very much. He is kind of, I mean, he just doesn't pull his weight. Like he's not really like you got to. I mean, you constantly got to be watching this guy. So if you have an employee that's kind of making sure that you don't have guys that are just like taking you for a ride, like they're just on the clock and they're not really trying to produce. Like if I leave guys like that working for my company, then it will drag the morale of everyone down because they see someone standing around and it just kind of ruins. Like the guys get a synergy. They all start to work together. They all feel like they're chipping in and doing their part. If you have a guy standing around and getting in their way, like eventually if you keep letting that go on, I just see they kind of start to mutiny. So I trust my techs. If they tell me that, hey, this guy's got to go, then I just pretty much have to at least move them off of their crew so they don't get in the way. I will have guys stay in the shop where they can be more micromanaged, and if they need to bulb stuff or move stuff around it, I honestly, Mark's way too valuable to be having him in my shop bulbing stuff and moving it and sorting it, which absolutely has to be done. But it doesn't have to be done. But now Mark can do a better job than almost anyone else I'm going to put in charge of doing it. And Mark did do a lot of that. But I would get frustrated when he's doing it because I know that he's much more valuable doing other things than just organizing stuff. But someone has to do it. So he'll do whatever. I mean, he's pretty much like a business owner. He just
So
doesn't own
it's
his own business.
the very beginning when we were switching over incandescent to LED. Like again, find people that actually care about your company that want to grow again. And it also comes down to your boss too, right? If you're being underappreciated, then you probably aren't going to do the work. So it should really be vice versa. But in the beginning, I knew Fred always appreciated everything, and I appreciated him obviously. When we were switching over from incandescent to LED, I actually would sit at the house when I was doing nothing and just bulb stuff up again, trying to get stuff done, so that way for the next day, we were good to go. Again, this is when LED was like just becoming a thing. So everything did have to get switched over from the strands, but I would do this off the clock, you know? It doesn't matter. I mean, that's not the point. The point is, again, find people that appreciate you and that you are appreciated, and you will get stuff done. You're going to see your company growing, whether it's in terms of numbers or just relationships.
Well, so we do some of the biggest celebrities in Indianapolis, some of the most high profile individuals in Indianapolis. I mean, I have top notch crew, so I'm not afraid to take on any job. I know that my crew, when they're there, the customer is going to be extremely happy. So we're definitely not the largest company numerically in Indianapolis, but I think any job, hands down, if we're bidding against them and we want the job, that we're going to get it because I know we have the best crew. We drive around, and honestly, we're not the most expensive people in our city. We're still working on that. But our jobs, you can tell when you drive by our jobs versus the competitors. Like even Mark knows our jobs are top notch. We don't do hack jobs. So there's companies that charge more than us. And you drive by and it's like, man, how do they get the work they do? But we know whatever we do is going to be top notch. And I know when people hire us, that's the experience that they're getting. Like Mark's not going to leave a job if something's not done right.
Absolutely. If you wanted to ever grow, you could definitely grow. Again, we did, I mean, we have some guys that'll come in, a couple hours a week to do mini lights. But again, between me and the two other guys that I was working with on a daily, we probably did almost 300 ourselves with no help. So if you ever wanted to grow, I could easily find two more guys or an army of guys just to really produce if you ever wanted to grow, because I promise you, they would be trained well and they would produce.
Yeah, it kind of makes it tempting because I definitely have no shortage of leads coming in. But I've always historically I've just always had a tough time keeping up with the install rate. I get way more work than I could ever get to. But I never had someone like Mark working for me that was managing so the thing is I have one crew, but then Mark would go around and do all the punch lists while the crew was working. He would oversee the crew, he would help them, and then he'd go run off. He'd schedule the job so that he's got a repair kind of in the same area. So he could pull away from the crew, go do the repairs. I mean, you can't really, it's next level stuff. You really can't if you find someone like Mark, you want to try to keep him on the books as well as you can, because you're going to have a tough time getting this kind of work output from just a regular employee that isn't willing to go above and beyond. But I mean, like this year, where I'm talking about, I know he did a lot of jobs. He was responsible for them, even though he never stepped foot in the job. So, like this year, I'm going to pay. We're talking about he's going to get paid something on all the jobs, even if he's on them or not. So that way, because I mean, he's taking ownership of the company. So, but honestly, I mean, I think Mark probably knows this, but I probably worked on my install business last year, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week for most of the install season, and that was the most profitable and the fastest that we've ever grown was last year. As far as revenue wise. Now, I mean, I paid a lot more in labor than I've ever paid. But for me to get rid of the stress, it's worth it. So, and I
Yeah,
think Mark was probably had less stress last year than he's had any of the other years before. Am I right?
absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's funny because in the years passing, say, after a while you want to go to the gas station and get a coffee or whatever. Before, I took over all of that, the guy that was in charge before, um, he would sit on the phone in the truck just trying to figure out the next job, which is what I do the night before to figure it all out. So now we are efficient. So I don't mind if the guys are thirsty. I don't mind stopping at the gas station for 5 to 10 minutes and taking a little break. Because again, I know that we produce. I know that stuff is we're getting stuff done. There's no
So
other way to put it. We're getting stuff done.
okay, I don't know what this comment means. I can't believe you're still. I guess they can't believe you're still working for me. It's like, look, I try to pay him pretty well, so I know sometimes there's more than just monetary. But look. I mean, Mark likes to work, so and we have consistent work, and so I'm pretty much turning over ownership of the company to him a little at a time. So I mean, he wants to manage it. That is what. Let's see. I think this guy really doesn't like it. Okay. I think we're being trolled. Yeah. Well, the thing is, we have like a Christmas like contractors. We have a lot of haters. There's a lot of people that saw us come from nothing, and we've grown to be one of the largest distributors in America. And we just what we try to do is we just try to take care of people. So I try to take care of my employees. I mean, that's the way I run my install business. So I guess we're being trolled by I don't know who that is, but someone doesn't like me. Now, actually, now a lot of people in Indianapolis don't like me because I've trained. I mean, there's probably over 100 installers in Indianapolis. I've trained a lot of them. So even Mark will say, "He's like, why do you keep training all your competitors?" But I don't have too many enemies. There's a couple guys that don't like me too much in Indianapolis, but
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you've probably had to help some of the installers, right? I think in Indianapolis.
in what terms?
I mean, well, I don't know. I'm pretty well. You've met a lot of the other installers. Maybe I actually go out and help them sometimes, but I don't send my. I try to keep my company running, so sometimes I go help another installer.
Oh man, that's funny. The troll.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know who BMO is. I'm sure he's laughing right now. But okay. Anyways, I think that's a pretty good interview. If you guys have any questions for Mark, we're gonna probably get going. I guess this is a little over an hour. But I'm saying he's gonna be at our training in Connecticut. We have Spencer Clays is gonna be here. We got Twinkly. Let's see. We got Twinkly. We got man smoking that. This guy no, we don't do drugs. That's one thing. We do not let people we're being trolled. I'm telling you, Christmas Light Contractors has haters, but we're a growing force, but we're having a good time. And actually, Christmas lights is a good time. If you're having a lot of stress, then you're probably not growing your business right. Like you should have friends in your business. Like Tommy Mello, I've seen he likes to make sure that friendships develop in your business. So if things are too stressful and people are yelling at one another, you probably need to cut back the hours and you need to get someone else in the mix, because if people are really stressed out and the customer experience is suffering, like your company's probably about to fall apart. So you need to put the right guys in charge. So like if there's anyone in the country that thinks they know a better installer than Mark, put them in the comments. Like
I gotta take that comment out of it.
smoking. Easter lights forever. That's Easter was a long time ago, buddy. I don't know who this BMO is. Okay, I'll take the contractor down. So we'll go back to something that actually is legitimate. But anyways, Mark will be here. We're actually gonna be putting lights on a house, and we got some trees. If you guys got some of your crew guys you want to come out and have them trained by the best in the country, I would come out and have them meet Mark. It's gonna be in Connecticut. I think July 11th and 12th. You're gonna learn twinkly. And you can ask Mark. The thing is, Mark, the reason he's able to do an install, I'd say it's very common for him to do an install in less than an hour. So, like, how many installs do you think you average a day, Mark?
Um, it could be anywhere from 8 to 10. I mean, it depends on the groundwork.
So we're doing 8 to 10 installs a day with Mark. Like that's pretty incredible. Like I would challenge almost anyone in the group to
But
try to.
it depends on how much groundwork, right? If it's a couple of bushes, we can do 8 to 10, not a problem. But if there's a lot of groundwork, obviously that takes a little bit more time.
Yeah, so I think that's what I'm saying. I think we have one of the best crews probably in the whole United States. So it'd be pretty hard to compete with us. But not only that, but it's not about speed. The quality of the work is like we're really second to none. Like literally, when I say I've done all these Hallmark movies, the real person that's done most of the work is going to be Mark,
Hmm.
and it's going to be my wife. She's done all the tree work. So
Hmm.
I mean, it's not just about like doing a good job or doing it fast, but he's doing top notch work. So. If you guys want to come out and meet him, he'll be. I think he'll probably be in one of our Indiana's trainings later in the year. But when he sets up a job, like he gets off the truck, and we're going to go over like what it takes to get a job done right and efficiently. But right when someone gets off the truck, they're running power and getting lights on the roof.
So
So
while
like,
it's funny, because while they're doing that, just starting to run the power, I'm already looking at the house and just seeing how many strands they need. Do they need a 50-foot strand here, a 25-foot strand here, um, females for right there, something for the eave, all that stuff. So I'm calculating everything that we need to get off the truck to make the job a little bit easier. Again, because if I grab everything and not overage, I don't have to take a lot of stuff back. I don't have to take those 2 trips. Again, just I mean, I count it down to the seconds. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, so I can do that. But to me, every second counts.
so I don't see anyone challenging, but yeah, Mark doing 6 to 8 jobs. Did you say 6 to 8 jobs a day or eight to how many jobs did you say a day you think you're average?
6 to 8. I would say average 6 to 8, but we can absolutely do 8 to 10. In the very beginning, we were doing 8 to 10 because there was no, mini light work. Some days we were doing 12, but
Yeah, I mean, just putting numbers on the board is just incredible. So, uh, this last, we're going to end with this last question, unless someone else got a pressing question. But what is the one tip Mark would give to new installers?
oh man, what is the one tip?
The
I
most
mean,
important.
I wish that I could, if they needed a tip, if they ever needed to reach out, I can train them for one day.
Okay,
Um,
so we've had people come to trainings before, and then they still feel like they want to go out in the field. So Mark, like Hunter, you can ask Hunter in the group, but Hunter came out and worked with Mark for 3 days, And Hunter will tell you those 3 days like changed his life. So he really, I mean, the coming out to training changed his life, but actually being in the field and installing for 3 days straight with Mark totally just changed your whole outlook. It's like stuff you've learned for many, like basically thousands of installs that Mark has been on. You just work with them for 2 or 3 days, and all that's just getting dumped into you. Like you can't handle it all just in a classroom, but working side by side with him for a couple days will just totally change the way that you think about Christmas lights.
If I had a tip, I don't know. It'd probably be don't overthink anything. I don't know. I don't think anyone would understand that until like if it was like a face-to-face kind of tip. But yeah, if you don't overthink anything while you're on the job, it goes smoother because then you start to actually simplify everything. You break the whole job down basically, from your movement to your speed to everything. Just don't overthink anything, and it'll go smooth.
Okay, well, it's 9 o'clock, so we're gonna probably cut now. But yeah, if you guys got any other questions, feel free to reach out. And like I said, Mark, he is going to be at the Connecticut training, and I think you'll see him at Indiana at summer trainings out there. But he gets a little busier in Indiana because he's actually installing a lot of lights there. So,
Yep. All righty. Thank you. Have a good night.